Captured by Women is brought to you by Yum Vita, a delicious way to grow.
Welcome to another episode of Captured by Women. Today I'm going to be having the show with Catherine Frimpoma, who's my colleague at work. Unfortunately, Nanama is not very well. We wish her speedy recovery. And Rosamond is on vacation. Today's show promises to be very exciting. We're going to be discussing the fisheries sector, which has serious issues that we need to contend with as a nation. We'll also be looking at the ministerial reshuffle, the issues of switching, kicking, replacing, and the new people that have joined the ministers. We also look at the interesting issue of microblading of eyebrows. If you had the option to keep your eyebrows permanently shaped for more than a year, will you consider that? And of course, we're going to be looking at everything else around all of these issues. We hope that you'll stay with us throughout the hour. This show is proudly sponsored by Yum Vita and GTP. Please stick and stay with us. We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back. On Spin today, we're talking football, but not just football, women's football. Because this past week, the Black Princesses have been participating in the Under-20 World Cup. Unfortunately, they've not done too well. But in studio with us today is an internationally acclaimed sports journalist and one of the pioneering female sports journalists in Ghana, who is going to help us understand what is really going on with our women teams. We have with us today Rosalind Amu, who is going to help us understand the whole issue around this team, because we hear that they've not been able to progress beyond the group stages ever. Which is very heartbreaking. But I'm sure you have your perspectives of it. So welcome to Captured by Women.
Thank you. Yes, the Princesses are making their 5th appearance at the Under-20 Women's World Cup. The 11th edition is being staged in France, and like you rightly said, they haven't done so well in the past week. They lost to France 4-1 in the opening game, and on Wednesday they were beaten 4-0 by the Netherlands. I'm sure everybody is heartbroken. Anybody who follows women's football is heartbroken. But anyone who also knows the story well saw it coming, and so even though they are disappointed, I don't think they are so sad about it. For me, I mean, this was one of the best teams that we have paraded, and they had so much promise, despite losing their top striker. You know, when we were playing the qualifiers, we had Priscilla Dubia. She plays for Ampem Dakwa Ladies in Techiman. She scored 10 goals. She was the joint top scorer in the African qualifying campaign. Unfortunately, she got injured and she's undergone surgery, so she missed the trip. But they are equally good sides. Unfortunately, we haven't had very good story about Ghana football in the last 2 months. I mean, since June 6th, Ghana football hasn't been the same, and the Princesses have also suffered as a result of that. I mean, it wasn't just the Anas expose. I mean, that one had nothing to do with women's football. But the fact that at that point it was the Ghana Football Association that runs the national teams, the government went to court to place an injunction on all activities of football, and they also suffered. They were in camp preparing for the World Championship then, but because of the injunction, they had to recamp and go home. They only resumed, I think, in July, I think 4th or 5th July, barely 3 weeks to start of the World Cup. And what can you possibly do within 3 weeks to prepare to face the likes of...
Rosalind, not to cut you, but it looks like, to me, there has been a trend which is not so positive, because if they have never qualified beyond the group stages, then it seems nationally we haven't given the best of attention to that part of our football administration.
That's not entirely true. It also depends on who you go to meet when you go to the World Cup. The sides you meet. In the last 2 editions, They almost made it. They were only eliminated by the head-to-head rule. I remember in Canada, they finished third on the same points with the team that finished second in that group. But on head-to-head, the team that finished second had beaten them, so they had to go.
Okay.
And then in Papua New Guinea, it was the same. Incidentally, we were in the same group, I think Group C also, with Finland, with New Zealand, USA, and then France.
So, Roslyn, what you're saying is they've done better in the past than they've done...
At least in the last two editions,
Okay.
it was progressive.
Okay.
And we felt that this team, for what is made of, stood a better chance of going past the stage if they prepared well.
So if it's not about the players, what was it? What was the problem? It looks like they were just not well prepared for the World Cup.
Exactly my point. You can't use 3 weeks to prepare for a competition. Already for the under-20 women's, for women's football, we have our own challenges. There is a requirement for you to play at the World Cup, for you to be ready to fully play in the World Cup. You should play a minimum of at least 32 matches. For us in Ghana, because of the league, because of the numbers and the way the league is structured, you cannot get those 32 matches to play in the league. So you make up with it with other trial matches. What happened to us? We were supposed to go to China for a 4-nation tournament and then to Singapore for another 4-nation tournament before rounding up our preparation in Spain. Then we would fly from Spain to France. But because of the bickering between the FA and the ministry, all those trips were cancelled. So what it meant is that they had to do their preparation domestically. So you play the likes of under-17 boys, under-20 boys, and then some of the women's league teams that were prepared or have been training. Training locally is not the same as training to meet an international assignment. And that is why, even for the Black Stars, for all the stars that they have, for the professional players that they have, when they need to play an international match, they get a trial with a foreign country, just so you would know where you fall short and where your strengths are.
So you're saying that this is fully an issue of a lack of preparation?
Fully an issue of lack of preparation.
It also
We have the
looks like,
players.
not to cut you, but it also looks like there was the publicity about the whole tournament and they going to play was very low, because until last weekend I didn't even know there was something going on, and I was surprised when people were glued to their set and they told me the Black Princesses were playing, and I was like, really? I didn't hear anything compared to other tournaments that go on.
Well, I think that you are right. We haven't done much with regards to promoting the World Cup. Understandably so. It is no longer the purview of just the state broadcasters. Now you have a plethora of media, and so the sports team of that media house decides what to place premium on or importance on. So that is one factor. The other factor is also that even as a country, until FIFA stepped in, we were not sure whether the team was even going to travel at all. Because once there was a ban on all football activities, they were affected.
So essentially this was an exception granted to Ghana?
Yes, because the ministry, the government delegation had to go to Zurich to meet FIFA, for FIFA to say that, look, what's the fight between you and the FA shouldn't affect your participation in international competition. There is no force majeure. There is no reason why the players should not be allowed to express themselves and participate. So even though the deadline for registration had passed, we were given that exemption. So a delegation from Ghana had to fly to FIFA headquarters to register us so we can participate in it. And it was only after they had returned that the decision was made that you can go and train. And I was thinking that once that had done, because once the coach was asked to present his provisional squad, what we should have done was to secure the French visas for them, so that immediately they would have been flown out for them to go and train outside.
Okay.
Unfortunately, that did not happen.
Do you think there's enough policy backing for women's football in Ghana?
I think that's structured as it is, there shouldn't be a problem.
Okay.
The challenge we have is the support and the finance. Women's football is part of football in general. What we lack is the sponsorship, the support, and the promotion. Because you realize that when we are having, I don't like to compare, but unfortunately that is what we have to do. Even when the starlets or the satellites are going to play, you get more vibe, much more vibe than we did. Of course, somebody will blame it on the problem between the governments and the football, which has rendered football, motionless now. But it has always been the case. And it is a fight women sports journalists would have to put up. Unfortunately, we are not too many in influential roles. Influential roles means we are not the final decision makers. Even if you want to talk about it, your editor or the presenter will decide what is topical and what is newsworthy to them. Technically, we are out. Yeah. But the interesting thing is they hold the key to decide the fate of whoever qualifies from the group. The Netherlands have won 2 games, so they have qualified from Group A. Between France and Finland, the Black Princesses will decide. If the French and the Dutch will play the final game, the Black Princesses will play New Zealand in the final game. If New Zealand win and the French also win, they could go out. Okay. On the other hand, if we beat New Zealand and the French even lose, they could qualify. So much as we are out, we are still queen makers in a way. And it's sad, but unfortunately that is our lot, and I'm sure that all of us involved at the decision-making levels are picking up the important lessons. For me, if you ask me, I would say that we should build upon what the princesses have done to ensure that the same fate does not befall the Black maidens who will be going to Uruguay in November.
Thank you very much, Rosalind. You've been excellent on this show. We will talk about this again because we're very passionate about women's football on this side of town. We'll take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll go on with the show. Please stay.
You're welcome back, and this is Big Bang. Today we're talking about the reshuffle that happened earlier this week. The president has reappointed and shaken his government a bit, and then some people have been booted out, others have joined, others have been reassigned, and so on and so forth. But to what extent would this go in enhancing effectiveness in this government? And we have with us Dr. Frankie Asari-Donko, a political analyst, to help us do the analysis. Good afternoon, Doc, and welcome to Captured by Women.
Good afternoon.
I hope you've been following the issues.
Yes, I've been following the issues.
Were you surprised at the reshuffle?
Well, I wasn't surprised. Personally, I've been waiting for this, but I think it's taken quite a while for the reshuffle to come. But I don't know whether we can call it as a reshuffle.
That's why I wanted to know whether you were surprised at the turnout, with the way things went. Was it what you expected? Those who were reassigned to where and who were booted out, was that your expectation?
Yeah. You see, normally when a key minister resigns or is booted out of a government, usually it creates a vacuum. And it's not always easy to just plug somebody out to fill their position. So sometimes many presidents and prime ministers will have to bring somebody here. And it happened a few weeks ago in the UK when the foreign secretary resigned and another minister also resigned. So somebody like Jeremy Hunt, who has been Minister for Media, Sports and Culture for a long time, I've never known him that he's somebody who has any flair in foreign policy. But I think it was kind of a loyalty. So he was brought in. So when somebody like that key minister is booted out or resigns.
So in our case, John Peter Mewu has been asked to fit where Honorable Ajako used to be. What do you think about that position for him?
In fact, I'm just trying to find out the backgrounds of
Amewu.
Mr. Amewu, and
he has been involved in energy. He used to be with ASEP before his appointment to head the lands ministry.
Yeah, I heard that. And personally, I like him the way he's got a zeal to work. But all the ministers are working on behalf of the president. So sometimes you see a minister working so hard, but behind the scenes, there could be the brake paddles will be applied by somebody else. So what he has done so far with Galamsey, sometimes you see that, yes, this is a man who is determined. If you listen to his speeches, he's determined to do what is right for the country. But that's politics. He is doing that, but he was somebody's appointee. So if you begin to step on too many toes, then we should know that the appointing authority doesn't have to explain to you and I who he appoints. So when he decides to dismiss, he doesn't have to explain to us. So all that we do is speculation. So if he's somebody who has been with energy issues, then perhaps he will be okay. But the question is, why wasn't he put there in the first place?
Okay, Doc, I need to pick you up on something you said at the beginning, that you were expecting this reshuffle. You've been expecting it for a while. Why is that the case?
Well, we've been first, the 110 ministers, the number was way too high.
Okay.
Because if you look at a country like...
but it's still 110. It didn't reduce.
If my elementary mathematics is correct, it is now 111.
So it's actually grown?
Because each of the ministers...
Abubakar Sadiq
promotion and
to
all
the
that.
office of the vice president.
Upper is being replaced by somebody who wasn't a minister.
Yes.
And that minister is now a minister at the office of the president. So
it still squares up because the information ministry used to have 3 deputies. And now the minister is not there. Kojo Opon, who was 1 deputy, has been a substantive minister and now has 2 deputies. So that's 2 there. Yes, it's still 110.
What I was driving at is the reshuffle finished? Because if it's not finished, because this one I thought that the president filled a vacuum, but it wasn't too easy just to bring Amewu there. And then now he brings Amewu there, brings somebody from Brahafo, and then the only one who is just...
It sounds like musical chairs, sort of.
Yeah, I don't see it as a reshuffle, honestly, because I was
You don't see it as a reshuffle?
Yeah, in the sense that people were clamoring for the number to be reduced. So I thought maybe his first reshuffle after assessing all the ministers, and also assessing how the ministries are operating. Some of us think that there are some ministries which shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Okay, we have Ministry of Transport, we have Ministry of Roads,
and then railways.
We have Ministry of Aviation. So aviation, roads, railways could all be under Ministry of Transport. Then one other thing that I personally don't think that is necessary, we have 3 deputies. We used to have 3 deputies at Ministry of Information. I think 3 at Finance, and 2 in most of them. So why? Because every ministry, the minister is there, deputy is there. We have the chief director. Under the chief director, we have directors, various of them. And the ministers are political appointees. And elsewhere, it is the technocrats who guide the ministers in their ministry. I know Chief Secretary at the Office of the Prime Minister in the UK, who has served about 3 or 4 different prime ministers from different political parties. That's their job. They will advise you in a very neutral position. You take it, fine. When you succeed, you take the glory. If you don't take it, you take whatever blame comes. So why are we having 110 ministers?
Unfortunately,
that was not the issue.
It's not like that in our case. But let's look at some of the critical ministries, like the information ministry. Somebody like Mustafa Hamid has been taken to inner cities and Zongo development. Kojo Opon Nkrumah, we all know his background, is filling in that position. To what extent do you think Kojo is going to go in pushing government agenda than it has been?
It has been. I have a difficulty when we are running a system. If you take the parliamentary system, there could be somebody who speaks for the Prime Minister. Then we are having the presidential system where we have a Minister of Information.
And government spokesperson.
That is usually the person who speaks for the government. And when we talk about the government, in the presidential system that we are running, he speaks for the president because it's his government. So what is the job of Director of Communications at the presidency? It happened under President Rawlings where we have the Castle Press Bureau, and even within that, there were different desks, and then somebody is also information minister. I think it's duplication of work. Because sometimes you don't know who is in charge of government's communication. And for me, one of the things that the NDC government lacked was communicating. They failed in that area. And unfortunately, I'm sad to say, this government hasn't done well with communication. And it surprises me because I know that there are people who are very good communicators in the government. And so once you don't speak from the same, you don't sing from the same hymn sheet, and everybody is coming. So if there's a centralized system where the Minister of Information is the government's spokesperson, if every ministry wants to do a press conference, the minister should talk to his colleague minister. So I'm going to talk about these issues. So he's an expert to tell, okay, this issue, don't go there. Because one, as a politician, you are looking at the political repercussions as well as national interests. They combine both. And I'm not sure that anybody going to elections and winning within that, okay, I just want to say one thing.
So, Doc, are you by this suggesting that you don't see anything that is going to be different from what has been over the years with this reshuffle? As
far as communication is concerned, I don't know to what extent Kojo Nkrumah is going to hold the Directorate of Communication at the presidency and say, okay, you are with the president, but do it this way, that way. I don't know where.
So the lines are not clear. Yeah.
And if you had followed them, sometimes there's communication from the presidency. And then Hamid will also say,
thank you very much, but we would have to end it here.
Yeah, okay.
It's getting interesting, but I'm sure the conversation can continue in our homes, in the offices. What do you think about the reshuffle, and to what extent do you think it can go in enhancing effectiveness in this current administration? You're still watching Captured by Women. We'll be back with Big Bang 2. Stay tuned.
With the rising issue of population globally also comes with a deep concern about food security. Ghana is not exempt from this, and we've actually been projected to have serious issues if we don't take practical steps to halt it. Today we're going to be talking about the fisheries sector, because 60% of our protein uptake comes from fish. And I'm sure you like your fish as much as I do. The nation, decided to take steps to protect our fisheries sector by instituting a closed season. Unfortunately, this year, the closed season was postponed to 2019. We want to understand why it's important for us to take practical steps to protect this sector, and what government can do, and all of us by extension, to ensure that we don't have to import fish, which is a real threat that we are faced with. To help us understand what the issues are today, we have in studio with us Kojo Che Amwa, who is a member of Fari Bambo. He's going to explain to us what that is about. Welcome to the studio, Kojo.
Thank you very much.
So, the closed season, I'm sure there have been lots of conversations around it. There was a huge outcry about it. And then when the ministry announced that this closed season had been postponed, there was also there were a lot of conversations. You are from the civil society part of things. What is your take on this issue?
Yes, first of all, it's very unfortunate for the closed season to be postponed because our fisheries resources is dwindling. and the fisheries sector is experiencing a lot of challenges. Fishermen go to sea, they don't get fish. Why? Because the fish is finishing. We are harvesting at a rate that the fish are unable to replenish, to reproduce, to rebound. And in that way, we need to ensure that we manage the people who go and harvest the fish.
Is there a case that we are eating our future in the present? Because if you're saying that the fishermen don't want it, some fishermen don't want it, then what exactly is the issue?
Yes, the issue is that for a measure like close season, you don't expect 100% compliance and 100% acceptance, because elsewhere it has not been wholly accepted. Some would, some would not. But importantly, when the board decision is taken and is implemented, then when the benefits begins to come in, then you see a lot of people accepting. In Ivory Coast, in Tanzania, in Senegal, in Philippines and others, when this was done and the people saw the benefit, some even decided to tell government to close the season for a longer period so that they get the fish, because they use lesser months, get more money, and then they can rest. Who doesn't need this? So the decision must be bold, it must be implemented for the benefits to be realized.
Some of them I spoke to said that they were not against the measure of closing the season. What they were against was the timing, because to them there are several other issues that should be considered apart from the closed season. One is the issue of illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing practices, which is the IUU. Until date, it is still going on, even more brisker than it used to be. What do you think should be done now, and what are the very critical alerts or red flags that are prevailing in the various communities currently?
Yes, for that the fishermen were right, especially close season alone cannot bring the impact we need until we address the illegal fishing. Why is that so? Because the gears that are used, the fishing nets that have small mesh sizes, catch the juvenile fishes and other things, and then also the use of the light aggregation device and also the use of other obnoxious substances like chemicals that are harmful for us are all issues. Also the work of the industrial trawlers fishing in areas they're not supposed to fish and doing illegal transshipment into bracket cycle and others are all critical issues that need to be dealt with together with closed season and other measures to ensure that the fish is able to rebound.
Government has been the problem, because these issues are not new. They have been there for years, and it is worrying to see that it looks like nothing is changing and we are getting nowhere. What is the problem as to why we cannot enforce these laws?
The problem is one, political will, the lack of political will to enforce the law, because the law is there, we need to enforce it. So the lack of political will has translated to the lack of resources for the enforcement agencies to work. It has also translated to political and other interventions. For instance, when arrests are made, people come in to try to plead on behalf of those who have done. We have even seen cases where orders were issued for those who have been caught to be released and their illegal gears given back to them. These send wrong signals. What they do is that those good fishermen also tend to become bad fishermen because they see the bad person or the bad fisherman enjoying.
Yeah, you've painted a very good picture of what's happening. What do you think is the solution? Is there anything that we as citizens can do? Because sometimes we get overwhelmed with what the government is not doing. Is there something that we as citizens can do?
In fact, there is a lot that we as citizens can do, especially in this democratic dispensation, where the citizenry can make a lot of demands on government. And also, the issue of voluntary compliance has been discussed to a certain level, and we need to encourage that discussion, where the fisher folks associations can on their own have some sort of code of conduct among their members to ensure that they report and they deter those who engage in illegalities. This is very important. The other point is that beyond the political will, there are others who try to influence. For instance, an enforcement agent explains that as soon as I make arrest, a traditional leader comes, a DCE come, somebody I know come. They even say they approach you in churches and then they talk to you, oh, release out. So all these things must stop. It might not be the high political issue, but the friendship and relationship interventions, those must cease. So we need to, and especially when fishermen are calling that illegal fishing must stop. we need to build on that, especially the discussion that was catalyzed by these close season proposals. We need to capitalize on it and ensure that we are able to get a critical mass of fishermen and work with them to eradicate or reduce the illegal fishing as much as possible.
When the close season was postponed, one of the reasons given by government was that they wanted to allow for broader and very intensive consultation to the very grassroots level. From where you sit, do you see that beginning, or are you going to sit down and look on till maybe June 2019 and then we'll go back to square one?
Yes, these things have begun going on. And even as I speak now...
Have you been consulted?
Yes, even as I speak
to
now...
the level of the beaches? Because that has been the problem. Chief fishermen will be carried to big hotels, come and drink tea and be given big money. But when you go to the beach, it's a different thing. They've heard nothing.
We have learned a lot of lessons, even we in civil society. Even now, I'm coming from a meeting where we are discussing fisheries co-management policy, a national framework that gives some powers to community groups and then gives the sort of relationship and legal regime that guides their operation. So that is the step in the right direction. We also in civil society are not going to sit down and watch government. We're going to take government by it's the words that government have spoken, especially ensuring that it becomes an agenda setting and promoting that. For instance, next Tuesday, we are looking at a strategic planning on IUU. We need to sit down with government, draw a framework, and then look at resources, and then go out there, consult fisher folks on that within the time frame, and then start to implement it. So when we say light must stop, in the law is there. How are we going to do that? So this is what we'll do. When we provide these platforms and we do not see actions, we take government to tax and we take the fisher folks to tax, because we cannot sit down and allow the fishery sector to collapse.
I think there's been enough consultation and it didn't seem to breed much as we expected. The people want to see more, and it looks like you have jumped to government side and there's no force or demand on the government to do what they're supposed to do, and so government is having a field day working about. Yesterday, earlier in the week, for instance, we had a meeting with the fisheries minister. We went to her office for 4 good hours. She never showed up. Till today, she never called to tell us any reason why she wasn't there. And these are all some of the reasons that had led to where we are, and it's very, very appalling.
What I will say is that is why we need all stakeholders to be on board. Media must do your work.
Media has been on board. We have been on board. We have been talking about the issues. But yes, you people also go and sit with government, and then when we need to see action, it looks like the rhetorics are too much.
Yes, you also need to push. For instance, in this specific case, I see it as media also pushing to get the right answer.
To get the minister to give her the platform. She splashed it in our faces.
Also note that we realize that there are various forms of advocacy. There were times that we sat back and then complained about government. But after a while, we realized that there were certain capacity issues we need to support fair. Civil society organizations have been provide vehicles, bought vehicles for government to operate.
Buses for the Fisheries Commission. And I was like, so
a lot of workshops and other things like that.
So use the money yourselves and work, because it's clearly they just don't want to work, because they've complained, not to cut you, but they've complained about resources. Now you have given them the resources. What are they doing with it?
Now
nothing.
The fact is that there are other challenges that we're trying to work with government to achieve. But also, once we do that, we are building the trust issues, and then we are also going to take government on. For instance, we've come out strongly to say this postponement is a big disappointment to civil society, and we want to pick it up. There are times that we have threatened that in the near future, if you don't see things happen, we'll even take government to court for not implementing your own laws. So these are the things. So after we've done what we can, then when we step in, you understand where we're
coming from. The situation you've painted is one that is urgent. I mean, if we face the threat of having to import fish in the next few years, we're importing already.
We are importing.
And you've painted the picture of it being we are at the point where we should be in crisis mode. Do you feel that there's that sense of urgency on the government side to fix this problem?
Yes, we feel there's a sense of urgency, but the courage is not there.
Then there's no sense.
Yeah, there could be. The courage is not there. We need to get government the courage to do that.
Who will get the government
we need to make
courage?
demands. That is active citizenship, and it's very important. But also, one thing I want to stress on is that for the past 5 years, we've been importing fish at an alarming rate. Sometimes it's the third on our importation list. Wow. Way over $400 million. And that reduces the value of our cedi, and it's also creating job for others. So it's an important issue. It's an economic issue, it's a security issue, it's a livelihood issue, and it's a food issue. So this is at the core of our existence as a nation, and we need to put in measures. I see it as a national crisis.
Yeah.
We call illegal fishing galamsey at sea, and we want the president to see it as such.
If we're communicating in meetings and seminars, and the people who need to hear the message are the people
That's
on the
the point.
beaches,
The
like
communication strategy has not
what are
been
we
the best.
doing?
So
It
that
has
is why
not
we
been
in
the
civil
best.
society have learned our lessons. We are urging government, and we've done a lot of beach events.
Last week, I was in a meeting where fishermen had gathered in Accra following the postponement, and one of the fishermen said that, what did he say? Infancy, and he said, like, he said, Pharaoh said, what kind of tiles? Like, you cannot discuss fisheries on tiles in a hotel room. They themselves, and he said that the money that was being used to organize that meeting could have organized about 10 community derbers at the beaches. And so I think that is the way to go. Enough of the seminars, enough of the PowerPoint presentations. Let's translate it into the language they understand for them to appreciate the issues the more.
Actually, that is what we are doing. There's a combination of both, but there's more that is
it
needed.
working? Could you?
It is. You see, we call it moral suasion. Moral suasion can only work to a point unless there's deterrence. The deterrence element is not there. It's just like the Bible. We in civil society will try to do our best, engage government, and especially with the Faribambo project, look at our usual issues, illegal fishing, which is a big issue that needs to be addressed. And then we can push government on a certain tangent. But believe me, if we feel in any point that government is not doing what it's supposed to do, we'll take government up, go legal action and others. We need drastic, radical reforms to ensure that...
And those drastic, radical reforms happened when there was the issue around galamsey. Is civil society in this sector willing to do that? Because there was the media coalition against galamsey, there was civil society organization, there was a national conversation, there was social media. I mean, but for the fact that I work in media, I don't think there was much activity or noise, quote and unquote, around the fact that we must compel government to push this close season thing through. Because for me, it's very scary.
It's very scary, and we have learned the lessons from the galamsey. Very soon, you will see us catalyzing media against IUU. This year, in a few months' time, you see a meeting, media against IUU, to push the agenda. Because we need to push the agenda, and we need to ensure that our brothers, our mothers, our fisher folks, our friends are able to sustain their livelihood. And we must communicate, and we must hold government accountable, and we must do that without fear or favor. I always say this, and that is where we must get to.
Okay, so I'm sure the people at home are wondering, if we tell them to stop going to fish, what should they do? Because that's their livelihood.
The fact is that we are not saying don't go fishing forever.
Okay.
We are saying save the mother fish, so that you can catch it tomorrow for your own good.
And that was just for 1 month.
Yes, that was just for 1 month.
There had been some alternative livelihood programs put in place by the government.
So we need to understand that save your energy, stay home, don't go, and then come back making loss, and then we can have the industry. So that is very important message. So we rebranding the message, and the media coalition that is catalyzing is one
when
of the points.
When are we seeing the media coalition?
Very soon you'll hear about it, and we know that some of you are deep into it. So
yes,
we have already got
Catherine
leaders.
has done so much work
already
in that
got
sector.
leaders.
She's a serious advocate for
We've already
it.
got leaders. So
thank you very much.
That is where we
Kojo.
want to get to.
Thank you very much, Kojo. I'm sure you all love your fish, and we're encouraging everybody to eat healthy fish. But we do need to take practical steps to ensure that we don't have a consistent depletion of our fisheries, our fish and our aquaculture. So we're hoping that the ministry and everybody who is responsible for this will take positive actions in the direction of ensuring that we can arrest this situation. 2019 is just around the corner, and we hope that the close season will happen and we'll see improvements. Thank you for joining us, Kojo.
Thank you very much.
We'll take a break and we'll be right back. Please stay.
So looking good and great remains paramount to most women. In fact, almost every woman. And one thing that enhances our beauty is our eyebrows. And imagine having this shape and color on for more than 1 year. Well, today on Lifestyle, we share some tips with you on the new trend when it comes to keeping your eyebrows on fleek.
We are in an era where looking good is as necessary as your next breath. And for most women, how their face looks, their lips, their eyes, their makeup is extremely important. Today on the Lifestyle segment, we take a look at the latest brow and lash trends taking the world by storm. I am Solace Rose Corte. This is Beauty Bank.
Hello, Solace. How are you?
Fine. All right.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. This is the CEO of Beauty Bank, Salasi Hundrash. I'm a client.
Microblading?
Yes, I've heard about it. I've seen it on the internet, and it's making quite a name for
Yes,
itself.
very much so.
So I just want to find out a little bit more about that
Why not?
before you put me on the knife.
Let's have a sit. Basically, microblading is just a form of brow architecture. We're adding make-believe hairs to your eyebrow hair to give it just a fuller look. So it's done in such a way that it's unique to you, more like it's bespoke to you, and it just cuts down the time you spend in front of the mirror every morning trying to make yourself look beautiful.
Okay.
So the reason why it's taking the whole industry by storm is because it really looks like hair. Okay, women find themselves having eyebrows that they never had before, and not only for women, even for men. Okay. So we have various types of people from all forms of life. Some people have had accidents, people with alopecia, where they've lost their hair. All these people are candidates for microblading.
Okay. Right.
So we have our health forms.
Really? So this is what I have to fill.
Yes, and have to read and understand.
This is 5 pages.
Yes, this is your aftercare.
But I'm just coming from for like a basic beauty procedure. At least that's what I think.
No, it's not that basic because there's little forms of invasion, as in scratches on the surface of your skin with little needles. And yes, and sometimes yes, we could draw some blood. So there may be allergic reactions to maybe the pigment. So there's certain things you need to know. Some clients come in, they just heard about it and they just want to experience it. Some people have done their research for about a year because you have to be confident of the artist that you're going to. You don't just wake up and just go to anybody who's advertising that they're doing microblading. So this is an in-depth, like, slammed together for you to know what you're getting yourself into.
Which person can't do microblading? What would
Normally,
disqualify someone?
somebody with diabetes, somebody with AIDS, hepatitis, those are people who cannot undergo, because, like I said, we draw a bit of blood. So if we are not conforming to the health regulations, there may be a spread of these diseases. Somebody having diabetes may have their scratches not healing at a very fast rate, and that could cause an infection. So those are some of the people who cannot undergo. And then people who have extreme skin allergy. Some people are allergic to a whole lot of things. So when you come, we can decide to do a patch test where we make a little scratch in your elbow area just for 24 hours to see how your body reacts. If there's no reaction, then yes. So these forms also ask you about whether you have hepatitis, your AIDS. You must be honest. You can't really lie. You must be honest. So once you agree that you are free from any of these diseases, we can proceed with the treatment.
So do you even need certification to be able to do microblading?
Yes, you do need certification. Certification, unfortunately, is not something difficult to get. So that is why most of the times when you are going to maybe do your brows somewhere, you need to first go visit the place. You need to first understand that the work that's been done is of the artist, not like she stole pictures from the internet and did it and put it on her page and that's what she's using to advertise. You need to do a bit of research. And yes, you do need certification as a professional. Why? Because there's so many factors that come into play. Like I said, there's a little bit of drawing of blood. You need to be artistic. You need to conform to health regulations. So obviously you need some background. Since it's a fast-growing industry, you need to be abreast because we have all races doing it. We have white people, we have black people, we have Chinese, Asians. I mean, we have all races. So you need to know your stuff to be able to work on all these type of clients. Okay. So if you don't have the certification and you haven't done so much, how do you work on someone who's Asian to know what kind of spine or what kind of brow to create for such a person? Another issue that a lot of people like tend to raise is, what if I don't like my eyebrows?
Yeah.
We normally say at least give yourself a month after you've done your eyebrows, because it goes through a healing process. It scabs, it peels, and you need to come to terms with whether you like it or not. When you don't like it, then we have various means, because it's not deep into the skin, of helping you to take it off. So that should also come with the service, because you can't just go and have the service done and then if there's a problem, then you are left as to being stuck with maybe eyebrows that you don't want. So you have to be able to offer a service where you can help remove. So then it comes another business where you have the tattoo removals. It's important. If you want to look good without effort, yes, you would experience this 1 month of being a bit uncomfortable, go through a healing phase, but after that you have, what, 2-3 years of beautiful eyebrows. So it goes a long way to boost the self-esteem of the clients.
I had 1, 2, 3 years. Are you saying that if someone microblades, it can last that long?
Yes,
So then I
very
don't have
much
to use
so.
the pencil anymore for the next 1 to 3 years.
But then there's
You sign me up.
but then don't forget that there's something that you have to remember. Whereas we're talking about microblading is not supposed to look too fake. Okay, it's supposed to look natural. So we work within your natural brow hairs. Unless you don't have it, then we create new ones for you. So as much as possible, it's just replacing lost hairs. So if you want to pencil it in, you can still pencil it in. Once we implant the pigment on the skin to mimic hair strokes, we lose about 50% of the color that is retained once you go through the healing process. So it's just like you have a scratch, and the scratch goes through a healing, it scabs, it peels, the eyebrows go through the same process. And that is what most of the women don't like. They don't like the downtime that comes with the fact that it's going to peel. Some even leave yet believing that mine is not going to peel, even after I've told them it's going to peel. And then when it peels, they call me and they're like, my brows are gone. I've lost my brows. And then I tell them, no, just wait. It's going to resurface in about 10 days, because as the skin is healing, all sorts of reconstruction is going on. So obviously, then we refer to how when you have a scratch, it looks ashy, and then the color begins to reappear, and then finally your brows set in. And then you need a follow-up appointment, which is a touch-up. So it's not just a one-off.
So when is the touch-up supposed to happen?
Normally 4 to 6 weeks after your procedure. And that is just to replace maybe any lost pigment areas.
That's a whole lot of work for
yes.
cosmetic procedure.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, it looks like I have a form to fill. So.
Yes. When we also talk about, for instance, the aftercare, we find that clients, maybe after they've had their brows done, maybe they visit their friends, and their friends will be like, oh, can I look at your eyebrows? And then the fingers are straight going to touch the eyebrows. At that point, we advise our clients not to allow anybody to touch their eyebrows, even themselves. If they want to apply any form of aftercare products that we give, they should do it with a Q-tip rather than using the bare fingers, because that's where you can get an infection. It's all about the aftercare. A lot of the clients also were worried per se, when I have this treatment, how are my brows going to look immediately? Can I go about my normal daily activities? Can I go to work? Can I go out? Can I go and swim? We have strict regimes that you need to follow. You can't swim after you've had your brows done for at least 2 weeks. You can't go to the gym. You can't sweat profusely. You can't, if you're white, you can go to the sauna. You can go tanning. You can't do any of those things for 2 weeks. You can't have a facial for 2 weeks, because you need to protect the brows since you're going through a healing phase. And also with the aftercare, again, you need to make sure that you don't over put ointment on your eyebrows, because it's easy for the eyebrow strokes to merge and become a shading rather than a hair stroke. So you need to be very strict. I find that now clients are willing to come and do the service, but they are not concerned whatsoever about the aftercare. Even as I told you, these forms have your aftercare slip, which you need to go home with. And I find that even sometimes clients forget them here. So it's very important. The aftercare it's the final look of how your brows are going to be. So if you call me in a month's time and you say my eyebrows don't look like strokes anymore, then obviously it's because you didn't take care of your eyebrows. So once you have opted to do this service, you have to be ready to go through the whole procedure. So that includes the initial doing of your brows, the touch-up that comes 6 weeks after. You have to, I have clients even who come and say, I want to do my brows, but I want to still gym. You're not being realistic. You have to be realistic about your expectations. Like I said, this is not just for women. Men also do their brows.
Okay, Selassie, you know that we cannot talk about all these things without talking about exactly how much it would cost a client to get this service.
Okay, so with the microblading, procedure overseas ranges anywhere from $300 to about $1,200 depending on the artist and the location. In Ghana here, averagely we're charging between 1,000 and 2,000 cedis for microbladed brows. Now with either the 1,000 or the 2,000, it includes a touch-up. So it's more like a two-step procedure. So with the microblading, they have clients who come in and they are not fully microblading all their eyebrows. So that at that point we can charge anything from about 300 cedis upwards, depending on what we are really doing.
Okay, so maybe the person has brows, but
just wants to
corner.
Yes, I have especially the white clients. They have fuller brows. So some of them come in and they're like, I want to extend it. I want to make it more fuller in front. So we're not actually microblading the whole brow. It comes into play all the things that we're using. The numbing creams are expensive. We import everything because nothing is sold locally. So we have the pigments, which are very costly. If you want the best, you want to use high quality pigments. We have the numbing creams, which can cost anywhere from about $30 to about $80, sometimes even $100, depending on the brand you want to use. We have the needles, we have the gloves, we have the wipes. I particularly use baby wipes, which is the Kirkland brand because it has no additives. I use one per client, or even maybe two for one per two clients. So there's a lot of cost involved in the service, and because there's also the aftercare. When you come for the procedure, we give you the aftercare products that is also included in it.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you don't go empty-handed.
So it's procedure,
yes, it's
aftercare
procedure.
products,
Yes,
and then maybe a second.
So that's what makes the ball price figure.
Oh, okay.
And so now when you quote anything above $600, then now you're quoting based on your creative artistic values. So you're just saying that because I'm so and so, I'm charging this for you to be able, as a luxury for you to be able to come to my studio for me to do your brows.
I see.
Yes.
It's like the difference between H&M and then
yes,
Gucci.
and Gucci, exactly. Okay, so come with me.
Alright, so I feel like I'm being led to the slaughter.
No, you're led to beautiful brows. Beautiful brows, yes.
So we're going in. How
We're
long
going
does it
in.
take?
It takes about 2.5 hours. Okay, so no, so we already did.
2.5 hours.
We already did. We already did 30 minutes here.
Oh,
On
so it's
filling
all
the forms.
inclusive.
Yes, it's all inclusive. And then we're going to do about 30 minutes to draw the eyebrows, and then
Okay.
we're going to do about 40.
already drawn.
Yes, but they will be done perfectly.
Right.
Then
Perfect is the
and then
word.
we're going to do about 40 minutes on the numbing time. And then
Numbing.
yes, so that we don't feel any discomfort.
Now I'm scared.
And then we use 45 minutes for the initial procedure.
In our next episode, Selassie will take us step by step through the microblading process. Make a date. I'm ready.
Yes, I'm ready to come with you.
All too soon, we've come to the end of another very interesting episode of Captured by Women. Today, I enjoyed myself, especially watching that microblading.
Yeah.
Petra,
Yeah.
I think I'll raise some funds and go do some.
Yes, in fact, we have to do
very
so.
interesting.
But it was interesting to
Yeah.
watch and to observe that there are various options around beauty care and staying
So
on
now
point.
maybe I
So,
wouldn't
yeah.
have to wake up every morning have to think about my eyebrow.
Eyebrow, yeah.
But we also spoke about fisheries and the issues that have come up. Of
Very worrying,
the
very
issues
very
of
worrying. I really
closing
hope
and
that
then-
we can take the right steps to ensure that the situation is arrested and very in a very proactive manner, because we can't wait for everything to just happen to
Crumble.
us. Crumble. I mean, yeah. So
Well, so we also spoke about the Black princesses who are also battling it out. They may be coming home by the end of tomorrow.
It's a situation of the fathers have sinned and the children's teeth are set on edge, because it's really not their fault, but it's just the consistent lack of preparation or the issues with the GFA and government. It's the whole gamut of it. So
we also spoke about the reshuffle. Some booted out, some pushed.
Somebody was pushed out. Somebody's gone to Italy.
Well, and some also flew all the way from Italy to the Upper
Ghana,
East region.
True.
And then we had some new entrants. Cynthia
The Minister of
Morrison, yes,
Gender.
the first time parliamentarian and the first time as a minister. Well, let's see how it goes, but we wish all of them well.
I personally wish Kojo Nkrumah very well. I'm very excited about his appointment. He's that shining star in a lot of darkness, so we wish him all the best.
So that's it for today's episode. We have been supported by Yamvita, A Delicious Way to Grow, and GTP, Timeless.
Yes.
Thank you so much for watching. I'm Catherine Frimpoma, and I did this with...
I am Petra Abba Asamoah. Thanks for joining us.
See you next week.
Bye.
Have a great weekend.
Been going way out of my way. I ain't doing it no more. Way too much attention to what you say. I ain't doing it no more. 'Cause when they talking, they be talking about that shit that they don't know about. Yeah, I hear but the words go in and out. 'Cause I've been going way out of my way. I ain't doing it no more. Now is he right? Is he wrong?
Captured by Women is brought to you by Yum Vita, a delicious way to grow.